Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Got you guys a pretty big update tonight, right before what is now Hurricane Nicole is about to make landfall in Florida. So, we're going to give you one last really big update on Nicole. We're not done talking about Nicole as far as videos, but as far as covering the entire swath of where she's going to go, this will be the last really big update, as by the time we get to tomorrow morning, this will already probably be over the entire state of Florida, and this will be kind of a now thing. It already is a now thing. Areas of Florida already being impacted, but we're going to go over all the latest information. It is now, like I said, a hurricane, a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane, as we kind of expected her to become. So we're going to break it all down. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way. Appreciate the support. I really do. Thank y'all for tuning in during the duration of this event. Stay tuned. After Nicole, there's going to be a lot to talk about still, with a big cold shot of air coming. And we could be talking a little bit of winter weather, which you guys know that's been watching my channel for a while. You know, guys, I am very passionate about the winter weather category of weather. I love talking about it more than any other category of weather. But anyways, if you guys got anything that I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So I'm really hoping that it's not too bad for Florida tonight. Hopefully it just doesn't end up materializing maybe as bad as it can. But I can tell you that this is Hurricane Nicole. It's about as impressive as it's probably going to look at this point. It could regain some strength. It could maybe go up another 5 miles per hour, maybe make it to an 80-mile-per-hour storm, but it's running out of time to do so. This is water vapor loop. It actually got upgraded to a hurricane right over Grand Bahama. So, you know, it's hitting the Bahamas pretty good right now. The center of the storm's right over you guys. You can actually see this on radar. If you look right now on radar, this is the current radar, so you can actually see a good bit of Nicole. You can see the spin right here. This is the center of Nicole right here over the northern areas of the Bahamas. And we'll see. The National Hurricane Center has us beginning to eventually shift a little bit more northwest and make landfall somewhere around there. But maybe it comes in a little bit further south. But either way, I really think some of the worst impacts, if we get a little bit closer here, if we can zoom in, give me 1 second. If we can zoom in, I really think from Melbourne, really point south, all these beaches into here, they're already getting hit by rain squalls right now, gusty winds, probably, you know, winds gusting to 30, 40 mile per hour. I really think you guys in these areas right into here are going to get hit probably the hardest. You guys, with the center of the storm, I mean, it's going to make landfall here in the next probably, I would say the next 4 or 5 hours, maybe a little sooner, give or take an hour. But I think these beaches right in here are going to get hit the hardest. And then Orlando's up here. It's really going to begin to take more of a northwest kind of motion, if you will. So I think Orlando could get scraped pretty good by some gusty winds overnight into tomorrow morning. 40, 50 mile per hour wind gust, isn't, I don't think, out the realm of possibility. I certainly think it's really possible. And I think Tampa Bay can get some very gusty winds overnight. And eventually, this is going to probably make it and kind of get back out into the Gulf of Mexico. And I think it could hit Panama City, Tallahassee. I think you guys could get some brief tropical storm force conditions probably sometime tomorrow evening, as this makes a secondary landfall sometime tomorrow night. So, sorry for coughing, guys. I know that's probably pretty loud in your audio. Still trying to shake that cough. So, like I said, this is Hurricane Nicole. Let's see if we got an actual update here, and we don't. I don't know what's going on with the National Hurricane Center, but this is a hurricane now. I know it says Tropical Storm Nicole, 4 p.m. update, but for whatever reason, just the update on the site is lagging because this still says 70 miles per hour. But you can tell in general, this is the latest cone of uncertainty. It's really shrunk here because confidence is pretty high that it's going to take this route into here. And if you notice, the cone isn't extending out as far anymore. To me, that tells me that this just totally loses its identity just in general. It goes subtropical. And maybe at some point before it even reaches Maine, it could just just be a remnants. So eventually it won't even be a name system anymore. Just be the remnants of Nicole. But should be a depression by the time it gets to the upstate of South Carolina sometime Friday afternoon. But here's the actual real information from the Twitter account from the National Hurricane Center saying this has actually been upgraded to a hurricane. Nicole becomes a hurricane while making landfall on Grand Bahama Island. So it is officially a hurricane. 75-mile-per-hour winds with potential for higher gusts, obviously, inside those most intense areas. So as we look right here, like I said, it is a hurricane. National Hurricane Center says that the center of the storm might go between Palm Bay and Port St. Lucie, but I can tell you this is going to have to start to make a gradual turn northwest pretty soon if it's going to take the exact route. If not, it's going to take more of the southerly route. I think the impacts kind of remain the same. I think it's going to be in this area right here, and I still think Melbourne points south. They're going to see the nastiest conditions. I really do. As far as watches and warnings, and stay tuned, we're going to talk about potential impacts. Everybody in the dark red, that's tropical storm warnings in place. So if you know your county, obviously find it on here. I don't know every single county in Florida or Georgia or South. I know most of them in South Carolina, but in general, find where you're at, see if you're under a warning, and just heed the warnings, the watches. This little area right here is tropical storm watches. But if you notice, the tropical storm warning's up even in southern areas of Georgia. I mentioned yesterday or this morning that I thought they would extend into southern Georgia. They certainly have. And then you got the hurricane warnings, which really haven't extended either way. They haven't expanded, haven't remained the same. You just got basically hurricane warnings up for a few counties on the eastern areas of Florida where hurricane force conditions is expected for a period of time. But you got tropical storm warnings, all the way up to Charleston and north of Charleston. So it's already probably gusty there right now. Gusty conditions for the entire southeast coastline is ongoing, probably all the way up to North Carolina. Recon, hurricane hunters, this is actually NOAA. As flying through the storm, they found in this purple area, these purple wind barbs, that's anywhere from 64 to 83 knots. So that's why they upgraded it to a hurricane force, a storm, a hurricane, because 64 to 84 knots is pushing anywhere from 75, 80, 85 mile per hour winds. So it is now officially a hurricane, and they found a central low pressure of 976. I think that's a little bit too low, but I do think it's around 980 or so. So if we look at the latest H-Wharf model, I still think it's a great model to look at. We'll make landfall maybe sometime around midnight, so here in the next several hours. Like I said, the H-Wharf model has a nice banding all around the center of the storm, but I think the worst conditions will be on the northern end of the storm, where you have brief periods of hurricane force conditions that's 74 miles per hour or higher. Moving into the Melbourne area, points south, I really think this entire area right here at the coastline, I would say if I was to go back on Zoom right here. So basically, where's Melbourne? Right here, Melbourne, Satellite Beach, Palm Bay, Barefoot Bay, Sebastian, Vero Beach, Lakewood Park, Fort Pierce, all the way down to probably Port St. Lucie. I really think these areas are going to get hit the hardest. I think this is where we'll hear about the most damage, more than likely in this area, if I had to make an unprofessional call on it. This will continue. By the time the sun's coming up, I think the center of the storm will be close to Tampa Bay, or just east or northeast of it. This will bring some very gusty winds through Orlando overnight, Tampa Bay in the morning. And then I think by tomorrow morning, it'll be potentially back over the northeast Gulf of Mexico, where it could really hit areas like Panama, Tallahassee, pretty hard with some tropical storm force conditions tomorrow evening before it makes a secondary landfall sometime around dinner time tomorrow night. The low pressure could actually sneak all the way into southeast Alabama, according to the H-Wharf model. And then it just brings a lot of, rain to everybody. So stay tuned. We're actually going to talk about this, the tornado threat too, because that's a big deal here in the Carolinas. I really think it is. I think we're going to have many spin-ups potentially in the Carolinas. I'm out of vacation time at my job, so I will not be chasing anything. It kind of sucks because it's going to be locally in my own state, so it's going to be tearing my nerves up that I can't be out there and at least reporting for you guys. But there is going to be a tornado threat, definitely for the Carolinas and southeast Georgia. But as far as storm surge, you know, this is ongoing right now. You could have 3 to 5 feet from just north of Melbourne all the way up to, you know, maybe all the way up to Jacksonville, then 2 to 4 feet from, I would say, halfway up the coast of Georgia, all the way to just north of Charleston. So storm surge possible all the way up to Surf City, North Carolina. So, you know, this is a pretty large storm, guys. You got to remember, pretty expansive wind field that's bringing a lot of easterly onshore winds as far north as the coastline of North Carolina. So it's pretty impressive how big it is, but it's very dangerous. Rip currents, definitely don't want to be out there. But of course, you always see some crazy people out there in the surf, surfing it. But it's hard to knock on them people because I'm a daredevil too. But certainly for little kids, definitely you don't want to be on the beaches right now. Obviously, it's dark, so most aren't. But anyways, we look at the H-Wharf as far as wind speeds. This is in miles per hour, which is much easier to explain. But right here in the pinks right here, that is winds pushing 65 to 75 miles per hour. This begins to move onshore probably around midnight. And like I said, Melbourne being in here and surrounding regions, there's going to be those hurricane force winds that moves through in the middle of the night. Guys, the middle of the night is when the nastiest conditions are going to be. And then Orlando being right into here, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts definitely isn't out the question here. Tampa Bay, there could be a period of 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts where the center of the storm gets very close and you have a big time rush of southerly winds ahead of the storm. But we just got to see, northerly winds. You know, there might be a period where you might get a little bit of storm surge into Tampa Bay as the center of the storm moves through. And then you have some northerly winds and some winds out the northwest, then some winds out the west. And this actually gets shoved into the Tampa Bay area. So we got to watch out for a little bit of storm surge tomorrow afternoon. Then this gets back over the Gulf of Mexico, brings a period of tropical storm force conditions that's over 39 miles per hour for areas of the panhandle of Florida, probably tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and then could potentially bring some very gusty winds. That's why there's wind advisories in a lot of Georgia right now, including Atlanta. Some very gusty winds, potential 25, 40 mile per hour wind gusts into Georgia as we get into our Friday afternoon. And then the winds could be enhanced in the southern Appalachian Mountains and the foothills. So we got to watch that. We'll talk more on that tomorrow. But as far as rainfall for Florida and South Georgia, I mean, this isn't going to be a huge rainmaker. It's the National Weather Service. Anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of rain. I mean, that's a lot of rain for some, but we've seen tropical systems, even tropical storms, do a lot worse. So as far as the tornado threat, this is for tomorrow. It's going to be a 2-day event. And really it's going to crank up. It'll crank up tomorrow afternoon, but I really think most of it's probably going to be tomorrow night into maybe Friday morning. But there's a slight risk tomorrow, and this is really driven off a tornado threat. So if you're in these yellow areas, there is a legit tornado threat. There's a 5% chance to see a tornado and 25 miles in any given location. And the reason this has developed, guys, is because the center of Nicole has trended more west as far as it moving more inland. So the path of the storm is now moving like this. Therefore, the dirty side of the storm, which we've talked about many times in the tropics, which is that northeast or easterly quadrant, is going to be pushed. It's going to be into the Carolinas as opposed to offshore because it's moving inland now. So there's going to be probably a wedge of really moist and maybe warm air. Maybe the sun even comes out. And there is going to be some rotating storms due to the dirty side of the storm. There's always a tornado threat with tropical systems, even weak tropical systems. So there's a tornado threat in this brown area, even in the green area. That includes Columbia, my neck of the woods. But Charleston to Wilmington, Savannah down to Jacksonville, 5% chance to see a tornado and 25 miles in any given location is there. And then we go into tomorrow. I mean, Friday, and I really think the worst of this is going to be Friday morning into early Friday afternoon. There's a slight risk here, but this is for day 3. But I can go on and tell you that there's going to be a 5% chance of a tornado introduced for this entire yellow area. And I wouldn't be surprised, excuse me, if maybe a small enhanced risk gets introduced. Don't hold me to it, but I can tell you something we look at. I know it's going to be corny, but it's called NATOcast. And it's something that a lot of people in the weather community on Twitter look at. And it nailed that tornado outbreak in South Carolina that I chased and got a couple tornadoes on film there. And I can tell you it's going crazy about this tornado risk in the Carolinas. So this is something we need to really pay attention to. And if we look at the radar and how it can unfold, here it comes. This is as early as tomorrow morning. You already got these kind of feeder bands rolling into Georgia, the Carolinas. These could be rotating, guys. They could. We're getting into tomorrow afternoon at this point. All these could have a little bit of a spin to them. There could be some embedded tornadoes in any of these little storms right here. This is starting to get into the sun starting to come down at this point tomorrow evening. This will be around this time tomorrow evening. And it continues. The tornado threat continues overnight. In fact, this is the middle of the night tomorrow night into Friday. So around midnight, I would say Thursday into Friday. This is a huge feeder band working its way through South Carolina. And there's going to be a tornado threat with it. And, we're getting into Friday morning at this point. The sun's coming up. And, you have an all-out tornado threat situation into eastern areas of the Carolinas unfolding. And then, you got to watch this last little band that moves through Friday afternoon. Raleigh, and all these, Greenville, all these areas right here in eastern South Carolina, even eastern South Carolina early in the morning, but eastern North Carolina, this could be a dangerous tornadic line of storms. Especially, watch out, Southeast Virginia, Friday evening, where I think the sun will come out and there will be ingredients for tornadoes in this area. So this is a legit threat part of Nicole that has developed. Certainly is. If we look at the significant tornado parameter, it doesn't look very high. It spikes to 3 or 4 in certain areas. We're getting into Friday morning at this point. I don't think tomorrow's near as high as maybe Friday. But, we got some areas that show up right here in the reds that enter that tornado parameter of a 5 or 6. But in general, it doesn't look too scary, but it does show overall a threat of tornadoes between tomorrow and to Friday. It's a real threat, guys. So let's please pay attention to this because I do think it's something that's not being talked about as much as it should. As far as other folks in the Northeast, rain is going to begin as early as Friday morning for West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delmarva area. We get into Friday afternoon, Friday evening, heavy rain widespread from central eastern Ohio all the way to New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, southern New England. This is moving through, and low pressure is moving well inland. Could be an area of very heavy rain in Pennsylvania and New York State. And just the interior Northeast in general for overnight Friday and a Saturday morning. And then by the time we get into Saturday evening, most of it's gone. But as it quickly moves overhead, there could be a period of very strong winds. This could be a very quick moving windstorm for areas of, from New York City to Boston, really all the way up to the down east areas of Maine, and develops around Long Island. If you live on Long Island, guys, and just southeast Mass, Rhode Island, areas of Connecticut, you guys, overnight Friday into Saturday could get a period 40, 50, maybe 60 mile per hour wind gusts are certainly possible. So please take this serious. Saturday morning, even more intense. So I think I said it wrong here. No, Saturday morning, it continues 40, 50 mile per hour wind gust potential on Long Island. Then Nantucket, you guys could certainly get a 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts out here. So it needs to be taken serious. Very gusty conditions. Definitely an all-out windstorm for a period of time, basically Friday into Saturday for you folks along the I-95 corridor. So take this part of the storm very serious. As far as rainfall for everybody along the eastern U.S., like I said, just not a massive rain event. It's a nice soaking rain. The thing that kind of sucks is it's just going to be a lot of wind with this. But this is a nice accumulating rain for a lot of people that actually is probably much needed. So we'll just widespread 2 to 3, maybe as much as 4-inch totals, but really just widespread 2 to 3-inch totals all the way from Georgia to Maine. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Sorry about the coughing. But hopefully this helps. You guys stay safe tonight in Florida. I know you guys can handle it. But just take Nicole serious. We're almost done with the tropics. I think we're definitely done. I think I said that we were done about 2 weeks ago, and then here came Nicole. But I think we're done after this. So let's just get through tonight, throughout the rest of the next couple days, and then we can start talking about winter weather. God bless all y'all. Have a great night. Stay safe out there, and God bless.